Okay, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Cafe Oleh. My name is Jay. I am a volunteer with Nefesh B'Nefesh. I myself made Aliyah with them 15 and a half years ago. And here at Cafe Oleh, we go over the everyday Hebrew you need here in Israel to succeed, whether that's learning the Hebrew in understanding and reading your utility bills, going grocery shopping and reading nutritional labels, keeping up with the news, keeping up in a discussion, getting into an argument, flirting, whatever it may be, but really focusing on the everyday Hebrew that you may or may not have learned in Ulpan or in day school or in yeshiva or in university or even in your previous trips to Israel. But that really are not just a part and parcel of everyday life here in Israel, but especially Olim by choice, us coming from North America and the UK and other English-speaking countries around the world, really trying to bring a little bit of what we are coming from and trying to balance that out here in Israel. So we're not just learning words, we're learning the cultural context in which they're used. I am by no means a human dictionary, but I will do my best to navigate us through various different topics. And it's important that we hear from you what topics you want us to cover. So if there's a topic we have yet to cover here at Cafe Oleh, we're all ears. Please write it in the chat box or be in touch directly with Nefesh B'Nefesh. You can also get a recording of all of our previous lessons on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, either type in Cafe Oleh or Nefesh B'Nefesh. You'll see a full playlist of all of our previous lessons. You can also click the subscribe button. I think it's a bell in YouTube next to Nefesh B'Nefesh, and you'll get an update when each new lesson gets uploaded. It's usually about 1 to 2 days after we sit here together on Zoom. So with that, we're going to get started with today's lesson. One more piece of housekeeping before I introduce it. As always, if you have questions you'd like me to answer about this specific lesson in the course of it, please write it in the Q&A box. You'll see in your Zoom menu bar Q&A. That's for today's lesson only. If you have questions or comments or concerns or compliments, also a nice thing, especially when you're getting a class for free. Hi. You can write that in the chat box, right? And anything you want there, but only for this lesson, Q&A, I promise I will get to as many of you as possible by the end of this class. So the last 2 weeks have been kind of intense. The topics we've talked about, we did the news one week, we did grammar, one of the hardest pieces of grammar in Hebrew, numbers. We're gonna do things a little bit lighter. I mean, light is relative. We're going to go back to our topic of everyday expressions. This is not quite slang and it's not quite idioms, but it's words, expressions, even whole phrases that even if you were to look up in a dictionary, some of these won't even exist in the dictionary, even the best of dictionaries. Even if they're there, you don't necessarily have the context how to use them. You've probably heard these words before. In fact, all the words we're doing today, you'll hear at least once a day. I think there's one that you'll maybe hear once a week. Otherwise, everything else you'll hear guaranteed once a day in walking around any street in Israel. These are really important words because they set you apart. You can learn all the grammar you want. You can learn all the formal Hebrew you want, but this is everyday conversation, whether it's in the workplace, in the grocery store, at a restaurant or a bar, or with friends, or even with your kids or grandkids. These are the words you want to pay attention to. So I'm about to share my screen. As always, you are welcome to follow along by screenshotting this. You are welcome to old school pen and paper, right? School, you didn't get the chance to get a recording like this. And again, there will be a recording of this in the next day or two, so you can go back, go over the words that we're about to go through today. You can also screenshot it on YouTube and go at it at your leisure. So again, we're going to go through these words together. I'm going to give you some sample sentences when it's relevant, and I'm going to explain them a bit more. It's not just a vocab list. Like I said, I'm not a dictionary either, but we're going to go through some really important words that are used all the time. So, everyday expressions, let's start off with a family. And there's a family of expressions that are all centered around the word Kaka. Kaka is a really important word. We've talked before about words that keep repeating, right? The first part of this, we talked about the word stam, and that's a word you'll hear all the time. And we've talked about the word yalla. Yalla, even though it's originally Arabic, has been adopted into Hebrew, and it can mean at least 10, 15 different things, depending on your tone, the context, all sorts of nonverbal communication with it. This word is completely Hebrew. And this word's really important because you're going to hear 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5 of these at least once a day. And it's a really important word to master how to say it and how to use it on a regular basis. So it all revolves around this one word, kacha. Kacha, if you were to look it up in a dictionary, like I wrote here, it gets translated oftentimes as so or thus, or like this, or like that, because remember in Hebrew, the words for this and that are the same. We don't have separate words for that. But I put in parentheses, in quotation marks, excuse me, the word because. And I'm going to explain why in a little bit. But kacha is a great word when you want to be sarcastic, or you want to be biting, or you want to be a smartass to someone and just reply to them just because, right? Just because. Kacha is a great expression. So if someone asks you lama, why, you can just say kacha. And that's exactly how you'll say it. Kacha. You'll go up and down, kacha. And that just means just because, right? Just because, and it could mean anything, right? Just because I feel like it, just because that's how it is. Any of those answers is kacha. Kacha is a really powerful word to master in that sarcastic sense, but also the classic explanation. If you can't answer someone's question, be they a child or an adult, you say it's just the way it is. Kacha. And we're going to get to a couple other ways to say the same thing, but kacha is the base of all this family of words and expressions. It's a really good word to have in your repertoire. Even if this isn't how you are communicative in your native language, we are in Israel, right? And kacha is going to be used a lot. So again, even if you're not going to use any of these words are going to be spoken to you, whether you like it or not. I get a lot of pushback from people when I teach slang or I teach words that may be a little bit more colorful, which is the euphemism for not nice words, which is also a terrible way to say it. Tough, right? Kacha. That's my answer to that. Kacha. People are going to use it. This is a nation of 9+ million people. You're going to hear this word at least once a day. You need to recognize it. How you're going to respond to it is up to you. If you want to use it, by all means, I highly recommend it. Let's keep going. Lama kacha, right? We had in the first part of this mini session on everyday expressions, we had the expression manisgal, which we explained as like, what the hell? Lama kacha is similar to that. It's not quite as extreme, but this is the classic when certainly when my friends and I are joking around, but other people are doing this, right? And they want to make fun of Hebrew expressions translated literally into English, or a native Hebrew speaker's valiant attempt to speak in English. This is a classic one. Why like this? You have probably heard in your lifetime someone saying to you in English, why like this? That's where this comes from. Lama kacha. Lama kacha is very biting. It's very direct. It's asking you as much about why are you doing the thing you're doing, both in terms of content and format. Why did you do it like that? Why didn't you do this? Why did you forget about doing that? It's all contained in lama kacha, and you have to say it just like we said before with kacha, it goes up, lama kacha, right? The emphasis is on that, lama kacha. When you say it like that, it's really biting. You are questioning the other person's existence and all of that they have done in life. It's really direct, but that's how we roll here in Israel. So another great one to know. Even if you're not going to use it, you're going to hear it either spoken to you or to other people in your neck of the woods. Similar to kacha, just responding kacha to something is kachaze. Kachaze is usually the start of a longer expression, but you can just say kachaze. Kachaze means that's how it is. right? And you can explain it, as I put here in parentheses, Kaka ze kshe. Kshe at the beginning of a word as a prefix means when. Okay, so you'll see a lot of expressions in everyday Hebrew. Advertisements, there's been a lot of advertisements like this using this expression, or trying to explain something. There was a commercial, I was trying to find it for you all to watch, probably about 16 years ago here in Israel. And it was the Cellcom, one of the bigger telecommunications companies, was having a music festival. And the ad is absolutely brilliant. It's a classic Israeli folk troupe called Hagivatron, whose bus crashes in the middle of nowhere. And it's this old jalopy of a bus, and it's in the middle of this nowhere town, and they're confronted by these beatboxers who are singing the latest hit song from 2005, 2006. And they have this sing off, dance off in the middle of it, and it's really cute, and it's very Israeli, and it's very much a mashup. And the tagline was "Kaka ze kshe ohavim muzika." Kaka ze, that's how it is. Kshe ohavim, when you, in the general sense, when one loves muzika, music, right? And you'll see this a lot. Kaka ze kshe ohavim. You'll see this a lot. You'll see this expression quite a lot in songs and in poems, and that's how it is when you're in love. Kaka ze kshe ohavim. That's what it is. That's how it's like. Very good. Up there with Kaka, giving a little bit more context to the answer, right? Kaka, when you answer that, is like, yeah, just because. You don't feel the need to explain any further. But Kaka ze is a little bit more, and then Kaka ze kshe, followed by an expression, more details, is much more detailed of a response. Row 5 is one you've probably learned when you were first learning Hebrew, or when one first learns Hebrew, and you learn all the different expressions, ways to ask how someone is doing, and then how to reply. And one of them that you learn is Kaka Kaka, right? We take the same word, we double it up, Kaka Kaka, and it literally translates as so-so, just like we would say in English. Oh, how are you doing today? So-so. Kaka Kaka. This can be the reply to anything that's just sort of Kaka Kaka, right? With that same nonverbal communication of your hand going side to side, right? This is the French comme ci, comme ça. This is the English so-so. It fits a whole lot of different things when you're just saying it's not great, it's not bad, it's just, right? It's that great word meh, but a little with a few more syllables in it. This is an expression you're not going to hear very often, but it's a good one to know. It's a classic Hebrew expression. It's not as common anymore. We have other ways to say the same thing. Kakastam. Kakastam combines our word kaka and our word from the last time we did this lesson, stam, and it translates best as just like that, right? Just like that. Kakastam kafatzti levaker oto. Just like that, I went to go visit him, right? It's on the spur. It's not giving any explanation. And it fits in line with all the other words we're having here with Kaka, right? It's all this sort of, I don't need to give any explanation. I don't owe you an explanation. I just decide to do it on whim. And even if I planned this ahead of time, or even if I didn't, I don't owe you an explanation. Kaka, right? A great word to know if you're trying to be spontaneous, or you're just trying to be incognito, or you just don't want people butting into your details. As close of a culture and society as we are here in Israel, sometimes you just don't want to tell people all the back details. Kaka is a great way to get through that. Okay, let's go through some other ones. This is one of my favorites. You hear this one a lot, and trying to find the best translation for it, this doesn't really do it. Kol echad veha blank shelo. Kol echad, everyone, right? Kol echad, the two words together mean everyone. Veha means and the blank. You're going to fill in the blank. Shelo, there, right? It's the shelo literally means his or its. It's referring back to kol echad. Kol echad is masculine, even though it is a collective word. So kol echad veha blank shelo. Oftentimes you'll hear the expression kol echad ve'asipur shelo, everyone in their story, or kol echad ve'asiba shelo, everyone in their siba is a reason, right? So everyone and their reason. That's the literal way to translate this. And you'll see it used in that literal translation, but it's best translated as to each his own. Kol echad ve'ablank shelo, kol echad ve'ayacholet shelo. Yacholet is ability. Everyone and their ability, right? It's that Latin expression to each his own. Everyone's got their own issue. Everyone's got their own problem, ability, excuse, reason, whatever it may be. This is how you would explain that, say that in Israel. So let's say you were complaining about no one being available to meet you or to sign up for something. You could say, kol echad ve'asiba shelo, everyone in their issue. It's insinuating that everyone seems to come up with an issue, come up with a reason / excuse why they can't do something. Okay, it's a good one to know. You'll hear this one very, very often. Another really good one that gets used both literally, but also not literally. Lo kara klum. It's in the same, I want to say the same category, the same vibe as kol echad blank shelo, as sort of letting people off, right? Not making too big a deal of a thing, but also making a big deal. So it's a little passive aggressive as well. Lo kara klum literally translates as nothing happened. Lo, no or not. Kara, happened in the past tense. Klum, nothing or anything. So altogether, nothing has happened. Or the best way to translate this is, it's all good. This is not yeh beseder. A lot of people are going to probably write into me or thinking the expression yeh beseder, right? You hear this classic cliched expression in Hebrew all the time. Yeh beseder means it'll be okay. I hate that expression, by the way. Lo kara klum is not exactly the same thing, because lo kara klum is referring to something specific. For example, you're at a restaurant and someone spills something. Let's say a few drops of it get on you. Let's say it's water, right? A few drops of water get on you while they accidentally knock their glass over, and they're totally embarrassed. They're trying to wipe it up. You're trying to both calm down the situation and alleviate the person's embarrassment. You can say, lo kara klum. Then you could say, hakol beseder. Everything's okay, lo kara klum, right? Lo kara klum, hakol beseder. Nothing happened, it's all good. Everything's okay. Lo kara klum. Lo kara klum is as much about pacifying and making things calm as it is also, as I said, it can also be passive aggressive in the sense of, I'm trying to give you a good example of that. Lo kara klum. Like, it's not a big deal, right? Like when you say it's not a big deal, but it actually is a big deal. That would be the way you would use this. But lo kara klum is one that you'll hear all the time, often when someone's not trying to make a big deal of something. Maybe because in that immediate moment they don't want it to be, or simply it actually isn't a big deal. Lo kara klum. That's the best way to say it, because you're referring to a specific event. If you just say yeh beseder, that's a very general comment about the current state of the world. Whereas lo kara klum is referring to a very specific event that either you have experienced or that you're witnessing or someone else has explained to you. It's a really good one to have under your belt. Okay, this next one is, we're getting into expressions that I think are important to communicate to you, because oftentimes native English speakers, especially and Olim from the West, find these to be quote unquote gruff or abrasive, or this isn't the way I was brought up speaking. Well, guess what? A lot of people in Israel have, or they speak like this, even if they weren't brought up like this. So it's important to recognize these words, whether or not you're going to use them, because this is everyday Hebrew, and you're going to hear these words all the time. It's not just because I live in the center of Tel Aviv and people are getting into fights with each other, with the cab driver and the Wolt delivery driver and the whatever it may be, or just having a conversation. You're going to hear these words. So if they sound abrasive, they are. Let's start with the first one. Azov, azvi, azvu. Azov comes from the verb la'azov. We've talked about this verb many, many lessons ago. This is one of the many verbs that in English get translated as to leave. But it's not to leave. It's really to abandon, to leave something for good. You are never coming back to it. And that's what we're doing here. We're taking the command form of the verb la'azov. The singular masculine is azov. The singular feminine, according to Hebrew grammar, is izvi. But as I put in here in parentheses, you're going to more likely hear azvi. And plural, regardless of gender, is izvu. Again, you're going to hear azvu. Right? So azov, azvi, azvu. And you're going to use these in a couple different ways. The best way to translate it, like I put here, is leave it alone. Right? If you want to say to someone, just ignore it, as in either you're looking at something or you're witnessing something and you're trying to get the person's attention away from something, right? Like, let's say you're encountering two people about to start a fight, and your friend is one of them, and you're trying to get them away. So you'll pull them away by saying azov or azvi or azvu, depending on the gender and the plurality of the people there. Right? This would get translated into English, not just as leave it alone, but also ignore it or ignore the person, right? Because you're referring to something that's directly happening to you. We have another verb that means to ignore. This really means leave it alone, but you would translate it also as ignore. You could also say there's a very classic expression, azov oti b'sheket. Azov oti, azov, you're speaking to someone directly, typically a male, but it's also used regardless of gender because even native Israelis, native Hebrew speakers don't abide by grammatical rules. So azov oti, oti means me, M-E, bisheket, in peace, or literally in quiet, but it means in peace. So leave me in peace means go away, leave me alone. Azov oti bisheket, leave me alone, I want to be alone. Right? It's being a little bit more specific in what you're asking the person to do. Azov can just mean leave it alone, ignore it, put it aside. This is one that you'll hear all the time. Again, whether someone is trying to obfuscate or get away from something or trying to temper flames, temper emotions, or just forget about it. Right? Forget about it is also another way to translate this. Azov. Azov, azvi, azvu. I gave you both the, before people start writing in the Q&A, I gave you both the formal Hebrew, which is azov, izvi, izvu. And then in parentheses, I gave you what you're likely going to hear on the street. At least this is all I've heard of this when it's used in everyday communication, which is azov, azvi, singular feminine, azvu, plural. Okay, so azov, singular masculine, azvi, singular feminine, azvu, plural, mixed gender. Next one. In part one of this lesson, we had the expressions tagid and takshiv. Tagid meaning tell me, takshiv meaning listen. This is the same family of I'm going to start off with a command with the intention, with a very concerted intention, I need you to pay attention to me right now. I might be telling you off, or I'm certainly telling you something that I find to be important. Whether you do or not is your priority, but I'm telling you, this is important to me. I need you to pay attention right now. Not as, and this could be bad, it could be good, but this is really like grabbing someone's attention. This is the equivalent, the verbal equivalent of grabbing someone by the collar to listen to you. And this is the verb lishmoa. Lishmoa, it means to hear. But in this context, it translates best as listen, right? Because first off, we don't speak, oh, hear me, right? We don't speak like that in 21st century English, even 20th century English. Listen is how this gets translated. And I gave you here both options. You can either use, because remember in Hebrew, we have two ways to make the command. Right? Command form in English is really simple. Listen, or leave it alone, as we just had. In Hebrew, like in other languages, you have to conjugate it, and it has its own form. In Hebrew, you have two options. One is to use the future tense second person, so you in the future, is the command form. The other way to do the command is what we call the imperative. Imperative just simply means command, and it has its own conjugation rules per the verb. You can look it up at pe'alim.com. Use that website many different times, but here it is, both versions that you're going to hear, and you hear both of these all the time. So you'll hear lots of sentences, and that's why each of these 6 variations have a comma after it, because that's how it would come, right? Tishma. Let me think of a sentence, right? Tishma, ani tzarich shetesayem et hamatala kvar. Listen, I need you to already finish the task. Matala is a task. I need you to already finish the task. Okay, I could also say shma. Now, the imperative form, which is here shma, shmi, and shmu, and pay attention to how I'm saying it, not the Hebrew nikud, the dots and bars under the letters, because as it says here in the Hebrew, those who can read Hebrew, it's saying it differently than how you're actually going to hear it on the street, right? On the street, everyday conversation, if someone's using the imperative for lishma, it's going to be shma, singular masculine, shmi, singular feminine, and shmu, plural mixed gender. Okay, that's how you're going to hear it. Shma, shmi, and shmu is very aggressive. It's very direct. It's very grabbing the person's attention. They have absolutely no way to get away from you. So keep that in mind when you're using the command form, the imperative form in Hebrew. It is very abrasive. We actually don't use it for all the verbs, even though theoretically all verbs can conjugate into the imperative form. We only use it for certain verbs more than others. The default is usually the future tense, second person. So, tishma, ani tzarich shekvar tesayem et hamatala, right? Listen, I need you to already finish the task. Or shma, ani tzarich shekvar tesayem et hamatala. Listen, I need you to already finish the task, right? And you say that with each of these other ones. Tishma, tishmi, tishmu. Shma, shmi, shmu. You might hear the ayin in these get pronounced even more to really emphasize that I want you to pay attention to me. So you would hear shmei or shma'u. If someone is especially coming from a country where Arabic was spoken before, because the sound ayin in Arabic gets pronounced as ayin. But it's also used by anyone to further enunciate what they're trying to ask here. Okay, so this is a good way if you need to get someone's attention fast at the start of a sentence or a request, you start with tishma. And you don't have to use bavakasha. As courteous as all of my fellow Olim are, and especially Anglo Olim, you don't need to say bavakasha at the end of this sentence. You can just say tishma, because it's meant to be very direct. You're giving someone an order when you start a sentence with tishma, or at least you're commanding them to listen to you. Okay, some other words really important to know that have a lot of cultural context that you may just not hear. 3 words that are both about time and space: baderech, techef, and ototo. You've probably heard at least one of these words on a regular basis. I would imagine most of these. Baderech, techef and ototo are relative periods of time in estimation. It's the equivalent, not the exact equivalent, but remember how we say in English, in a minute, or just a sec, or give me 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. All of those times, even if they are exact periods of time, they really aren't, right? We use those in our abstract sense that our brain creates that says, okay, if I say to the person, I'll be there in 5 minutes, it probably isn't exactly 5 minutes, right? It could be 4 minutes, it could be 7 minutes. You're not actually expecting the person to time you unless you're under a very specific set of constraints. But most people, when they say 5 minutes, they're not expecting to be timed, let alone time themselves. Okay, that's the equivalent of these 3 things. And let me explain a little bit more. Baderech. Baderech literally means on the way. If someone tells you in Hebrew, ani baderech, That does not tell you, did they already leave the house? Are they in the middle of their journey to get to you or to the destination that you've agreed upon, or they're already approaching it? But derech gives you the most flexibility of it. So let's say you are good Israeli citizens and you are running 20 minutes late to something, right? 20 minutes late is already, it's not bad. You would say ani baderech at the beginning or just before even leaving the house, right? I often say to someone ani baderech when I have made sure that I have everything I need before I leave the house. I haven't actually left the house yet, so I'm not actually on the way yet. I'm not on the street walking to wherever I'm going or taking a bus or whatever it may be. So most people would use baderech only when they're on their way, right? Baderech can be used as a filler if you're not quite there yet in order to get to your destination, what we would say in other parts of the world, fashionably late. In Israel, Israel Standard Time. Okay, so baderech gives you the most amount of time of flexibility. This is the equivalent, I would say, of 10 minutes, right? If 10 minutes really doesn't mean 10 minutes, this is the one that gives you the most amount of time, like 10 minutes. Techef is more soon. It's best, as I wrote here, soon. Techef is much more ambiguous, but it's not as long as 10 minutes, and it's not necessarily a few seconds. I would say techef is about 5 minutes. Now, you will see shops have a sign on the front of their door that will say techef ashuv. Ashuv is the future tense first person of the verb lashuv, to return. So techef ashuv means I'll be back soon. Techef ashuv, if someone tells you that, usually means that they've gone to the bathroom or they've gone to get a cup of coffee or a quick cigarette break. It's not a lunch break, right? Techef is not a long, protracted period of time. It's not nearly as long as baderech. If someone tells you ani baderech, you don't know how far away they are until you ask them how far away you are. Techef is a much shorter piece of time, right? So let's say you're talking to someone or you're on the phone with someone and they reply to you techef, it means that they're in the middle of doing something else and they'll be with you in a minute or two. It's not a long period of time. Okay. And again, we're not going through all the other periods of time. These are ones that are much more ambiguous to the non-native Hebrew speaker, but they're used all the time. So baderech was the first one, literally means on the way. It's the longest piece of time that you can possibly get away with not being on time to something or on the way to something. Techef is the next smallest, is smaller than baderech. And then the smallest one is ototo. Ototo comes from Yiddish. Ot or ototot also is in ototo in Yiddish. This means very soon. And it really does translate as very soon. You're not going to say ototo when you have a 20-minute walk ahead of you. You're just not. Even here in Israel, with Israel Standard Time and people arriving 10, 15, 20 minutes late to things, you would never say ototo 20 minutes away. Maybe if you're traveling a really far distance in a car, you could do that and you're speeding. But if you're walking, you're going to use baderech. If you are literally around the corner from someone, you can say ototo. Right? Same thing as if you are in the office and you're completing a task. If you're really close to being done with it, you can say ototo. If someone asks you, are you almost done with that task and you have a few more things to do, you can say techef. But ototo is the closest to completing or being at whatever is the destination or task at hand. Okay, so baderech, techef, ototo. It's the best way to describe these three words you're going to hear all the time. I use baderech all the time, and I haven't left my house yet, and I'm going to my friend on the other side of Tel Aviv in a cab, and I haven't even ordered a cab yet. Not the best thing to do, but it's a good friend, so it's okay. Techef is much closer, right? And ototo is literally around the corner. Okay, 3 expressions that are related to each other. And these are really important to know. This gets into bravado. You can even use the word machismo or just in general bragging. And that's I want to say a common trait here in Israel, but you will hear these three expressions used quite a bit in various contexts, but they're important to recognize, if not use as well. Let's start with the first one, baktana. Baktana comes from the word katan. Katan means small. Baktana, as I wrote here, means small as an adverb. It gets best translated as no big deal. Let's say someone in your office gives you a task to do. Let's say you need to proofread the slide deck before it's presented to the donors or the investors, excuse me, of your company. And you want to show off that it's not that big of a deal for you to do. The other person is not a native English speaker. You are, excuse me, and you were explaining to them, they're very worried. They're not going to have time to proofread and go through the slides. You see it's 10 slides. It's not that big of a task for you, both in terms of the amount of English and the level of it. And you can say, I can do this, baktana, no big deal. Or I can do this, it's not that, it's small. It literally means it's small, but it's more no big deal. Baktana. It's a little bit bragging, but it's making it clear like, oh, this is no big deal. It may actually be a big deal and you're just covering. But the point is you are conveying a certain level of confidence that you can handle the task at hand or whatever the issue is, baktana. It's not that big of a deal. It's actually quite small. That's what it means, baktana. The other way you can say this, which I think is actually even more bragging, and I rarely say this unless I am so either overly confident that I'm the only person who can do it, or I'm joking. Usually I would only say this when I'm joking, is katan alai. Katan, again, means small. Alai means on me, literally on me. So the expression small on me, katan alai, really means it's no big deal for me. Katan alai. Proyecta ze katan alai. That project is no big deal to me. Here, as opposed to baktana, where you're just saying in general, this is no big deal. You're specifying to whom it's not a big deal, right? So this can get conjugated. Katan alav lazoveta misrad mukdam. Right? It's easy for him it's no big deal for him to leave the office early. Anything like that basically is what you're trying to say with no big deal, and then you're specifying for whom it's no big deal. So katanalai, it's bragging, it's very self-confident to the point of being a bit arrogant, but you will hear this expression used quite a lot. Katanalai, it's no big deal for me, and then it gets conjugated. Katan alecha, no big deal for you, masculine. Katan alech, you feminine, and so forth. The opposite of that is gadol alai. Right? Katan is small, gadol is big. So as opposed to katan alai, it's no big deal for me. Gadol alai is I'm in over my head. It's too big for me. Literally, it's too big for me, but it's really translated as I'm in over my head. Now, obviously, since we're bragging here, you're rarely going to hear gadol alai. Instead, you're going to hear it projected onto someone else. Proyecta ze gadol alav. That project is too big for him. It's too big for his britches, or he's in over his head with that project. That's what gadol alai, too big on me, gadol alav on him, gadol aleha on her, and so forth gets conjugated. Okay, a really good ones, 3 to have here. Again, you may never use these, but the point is you're going to hear these quite often. Baktana and katanalai for sure, and gadol al someone else. When talking about someone else, you're rarely going to say about yourself, it's too much for me, or at least using this expression. And then the last one I added here, I know many of you know this already, but I know how many fellow native English speakers have a hard time with this word die. And it's one you just got to get over. You got to get over because die is enough in every respect. Die means enough. It is used all the time by native Hebrew speakers, whether speaking to kids or babies or pets or to each other. Die kvar kvar or kvar, depending on how you say the letter resh, means already. So enough already, dai kvar. Right? We have another word, maspik. Maspik also means enough, but we've talked about this before in Hebrew. The fewer syllables, the better in Hebrew. All Semitic languages prefer shorter words, shorter, truncated, fewer syllabic words. That's why azov works a lot better to say leave me alone than the verb lehit alem, which means to ignore. Right? You're not gonna get far if you have to say titalem mimeno, ignore him, versus azovoto. Azovoto, listen to how that sounds, right? It's really telling you what to do. Titalem mimeno, that's way too many letters and syllables to say the same thing. Same thing here. Maspik versus dai. Dai is always going to win. So fellow native English speakers, get over what it sounds like in English. We're not speaking in English. You are not wishing, God forbid, death on anyone when you use the word dai in Hebrew. You are not doing it. You're going to hear it all the time. You got to get over it, which is why I put it in here just for further emphasis. Dai or dai kval. Dai is simply enough, exclamation point. Dai kval, enough already. Both are really good to say to someone, whether it's to shut up or to stop talking about something or anything to get to jolt the other person into stopping whatever they're doing to you. Okay, I'm going to stop here. As I see, we have a bunch of questions. Get through as many of them as I can. Q&A. Yaakov, can I get your recommendation for a English-Hebrew dictionary? Great question, Yaakov. In addition to online resources, and the ones I always recommend are either Milon Morphix, M-O-R-F-I-X, or Context Reverso. You can simply look both of those up in Google, and search them in Google. The one I have, I'm just looking in my library behind me, is called Rav Milon, also known as Multi-Dictionary, and it's by the authors Lauder and Weinbach, or in Hebrew we would say Lauder and Weinbach. Okay, it's a brown yellow cover. It looks like fake wood. You're looking for one that is comprehensive. You want to be able to look in it inside that has sample sentences with it. That's going to be really important. The sample sentences help you a lot. And they will also give you pronunciation. They'll give you conjugation tables in the back, all sorts of good stuff. But I think the most important thing is that they come with sample sentences in them. Even if it's just in Hebrew, it helps a lot. Great question. Alan asks, what does omnam mean? Omnam is, the best way to translate omnam is verily, or truthfully, or in actuality. Omnam is very high level Hebrew. You will hear people use that word omnam. It is not everyday Hebrew, but it's a great word to have. It's just a little too high up. It's also, you can be used as like that being said, but omnam is really high level Hebrew. It's a great word to have, but it's not that I don't want to teach you high level Hebrew, it's that you're not going to hear it very often. The people who will speak it, we call them in slang here in Israel, sachim. Sachim are squares. I'm saying that as someone who's very sachi in some aspects and not in others. Omnam is a little too, yeah, square grid sounding. How does Kaka differ from Stam? I think I explained that pretty well. You should look at our lesson last week about Stam, or 3 weeks ago now, to hear the difference between Stam and Kaka. Very different words, but certainly complementary. Charlotte asks, what happened to Mapitom? Great question. So Mapitom is slang. And Mapitom is a little bit more, so we had the word, let me show you again. Right, I knew someone was actually going to ask this. We had Kakastam, right? Kakastam means just like that. Mapitom is asking someone directly, what do you mean? Or better translated as what the hell? It literally translates as what suddenly. Pitom means suddenly, right? If I was telling a story and pitom nigash elav hashoter, suddenly the policeman approached him. That would be the use of pitom. Kakastam is just like on a whim. Just like that, we decided to go somewhere. Just like that, the policeman encountered the man, came up to the man. It has a similar sound in English, but it's more without reason, is kakastam. Pitom is just sort of a time marker rather than kakastam, which is giving a little bit more reason behind things, which is to say there is no reason, or the reason is not relevant. Pitom leaves open the opportunity to explain why suddenly someone appeared. That's the main, very grammatical reason, very nuanced reason, difference between them. Okay. Susan, how come it's not lechol echad? That's a great question. It's the expression. Kol echad ve'asiba shelo. That's the expression. If I were to say lechol echad, it would have to everyone or for everyone. I would probably have to follow that up with the word yesh. There is. This is an expression. Think of it almost like an idiom. Kol echad veha blank shelo. Everyone in their problem. Each and everyone in their problem. Each and everyone's problem is another way to translate that if I was using the word ba'aya or siba. But if I said lechol echad, I would have to follow it up with to everyone or for everyone, there is something. Okay. Yes, Alan, if I was, great question. Alan is asking kol echat ve'shela, meaning it does this conjugate based on gender. This does not. If you were, because kol echad, remember in Hebrew, the default is always male. Even if you're talking about a group of people, the default will always be male. Okay, so kol echad includes both men and women, masculine and feminine. If I said kol echat ve'blank shela, I'm using only the feminine, which means I'm only referring to a specific group of women who I haven't defined yet. If I'm saying kol echad ve'blank shelo, I'm referring to everyone in a society, in the world. Kol echat refers to a very specific group of women, which may very well be the case, but usually you're going to use the default, which is the masculine. Okay. Andrew asks a great question. I was hoping someone would ask this. Andrew says, Sex in the City is popularized just like that in their latest revamp of the series. Would that be Kakastam? That would probably be the closest to Kakastam, right? And just like that is Carrie Bradshaw's usually the way that she segues from one topic to another or to summarize a topic of conversation. Kakastam would be the best way to translate when they use in just like that. Anonymous asks, how about stam kacha? What does it imply? It's a great question. I didn't put stam kacha here, which is also a reply here at the top. Stam kacha is the same as just saying kacha or kachaze. It's further emphasizing that's just the way it is, right? Because remember, stam can be translated as just. So it's further emphasizing, that's just the way it is. Stam kacha. Let's say someone asks me, how are you doing today, Jay? Ma kore? And I say, ani mamash ayef. I said, I'm really tired. And they ask, lama? I could say, stam kacha. Or I could say, stam kacha yom rishon, or yom sheni as it is today, right? Stam kacha yom sheni. It's just the way it is. It's a Monday, right? Same idea as kacha or kachaze. It means the exact same thing. Anonymous also asks, is die used the same way as azov? Great question, really good question. So die absolutely can be used the same way as azov. Die means enough, right? It can also, in that same sense of stop doing something. Azov also has that same meaning of leave it alone, stop doing something. But they mean different things. Die is, let's say it's two people. Let me turn off the share right now so you can see my hands as I'm doing this. If die is like this, you're speaking to two people. Die isn't indicating that either side needs to leave the situation, right? Let's say you're having a conversation and it either veers off the way, or they're using a specific word, or anything that you need to stop in order to get to a better part of this. You can use the word die, right? One person can say die to the other person. If the other person says azov to them, that means like leave it alone, stop talking about it altogether, the whole topic, not just a fraction of it. So they can be used interchangeably, but azov is more like leave it alone, forget it, put it aside. Whereas die is stop for the moment, perhaps, or enough for this moment. It's not leave it alone altogether. Okay. Can azov be used as forget it? Yes, azov can be used as forget it. Absolutely. Leave it alone, forget it, forget about it, but also forget it. Absolutely. What was the name of the website you mentioned for conjugations? It's Pe'alim, Pealim.com. It's also an app, but it's also a website. You type in the verb in Hebrew. I think it also does it in English. They'll give you the full conjugation table online of that verb. Ellen, what is the difference between lishmo and lakshiv? Great question, Ellen. Please also listen to our previous lesson on everyday expressions, where we explain a little bit about this. Lishmoa means to hear, and when we use it in the context we talked about today, it means listen. Lehakshiv means to pay attention. It also means to listen, but it's in the context of to pay attention. Susan, I think it's techev. I've never heard tekef. I can't read it in your transliteration, but techef is how we say it. Okay. Alan, the song Katana Lenu didn't seem like bragging. Great point. Katana Lenu means it's no big deal for us. And that's, again, not bragging. Like I said, it's not always bragging. It's also about confidence, right? Something where it's small for us, katana lenu, means that it's no big deal for us. That could be, God forbid, something bad in life or a challenge that we have in life. You can say katana lenu to show some bravado. Remember, I used that word bravado to explain that phrase. That's where this comes in. Miri, I don't know when to use rak and when to use stam for phrases like I'm just looking. You can use either of them, Miri, in that case. Usually you'll just use stam. Stam, think of it as just, right? Just is stam, only is rak. Yes, there's a lot of interchange in English and also sometimes in Hebrew, but best way to understand stam is just or such. No, it's more just, and rak is only. Okay, I'm just curious. Ani stam sakranit, because you're Miri, right? I'm just curious. Or I'm just looking. Ani rak mistakelet. I'm only looking. Or ani stam mistakelet. You would say ani rak mistakelet, actually, for that. Techev versus Bekarov, Elisheva asks. Techev means soon. Bekarov also means soon, but you're not going to say, when you reply to someone, Bekarov, let's say, is more formal than Techev. That's the best way to describe the difference between the two of these. You're going to hear Techev used a lot more. Bekarov is, think more like speedily versus soon. You don't normally use the word speedily. That's Bekarov. Techev is soon. If confronted with these expressions, how should one respond? Should one respond with another saying or be conciliatory? That is totally up to you. That's a great interpersonal communications question. That's entirely up to you. If I were in a heated argument with someone, actually, no, azov would only be with someone who is either picking a fight or that's inappropriate. You wouldn't use azov in an everyday I would say azov. If someone said azov to me, I would either realize I'm getting too close to the person and I need to back away, or I would challenge them if I realize that I'm in the right or there's no physical harm for me, and I would respond and say malazov. What literally meaning what leave, like what going away, right? I turn the word around on them and ask them, why should I do that? That's how I, two different ways to deal with, for example, azov. Okay. Jay, why do we hear people replying mapitom as if they don't believe what you just said? Mapitom means exactly what the hell. Mapito means you got to be kidding me, in the sense of what the hell? What did you just say? That's what mapito means. It's slang. It is not used. It should not be used to a boss or to a superior or to. It is not. It is absolute 100% slang. So if a child says that to a parent, unless that's the relationship you have, understand that slang. Howard asks, what about Ein Baya for no big deal? Okay, Howard, and all my fellow Anglo Olim, God bless you for being polite. Ein Baya is very polite, right? It literally means no problem. We're not talking about being polite here. We're talking about everyday Hebrew that isn't always polite. So lo kara klum is also a way to say that, right? It's saying it in a way of really trying to minimize it. We're not even calling it anything, right? Because by saying ein baya, I'm inferring that it actually was a problem for someone. Whereas lo kara klum, I'm just referring to the event in question. I'm not judging it as a problem. I'm not using even the word problem. So that's the difference between it. I prefer lo kara klum. That takes away any guilt or any shame that the other person has. Whereas ein baya is a great answer. For example, if someone is thanking you for doing something for them, I would say ein baya, like it's no problem. And that's more like it was no burden on me to do that for you. Um, yes, someone who is asking about French, the very little I know about French, this is the equivalent of the Latin expression to each his own, right? Lechol echad ve'ablank shelo. Susan, techef umiyad. Miyad is immediately, techef is soon. Does anyone say techef umiyad? You'll hear that in very formal settings. You won't hear that in everyday conversation. It's not the best. You're just not going to hear that very often. Because how many times are you going to say to someone soon in the sense of you have to respond to them? It's usually techef or od kama dakot is another way to do this. Okay. Miriam asks, as a single female, I get gruffness, passive aggressive, direct all the time in every interaction. These phrases help, but what's the best tone? Nonverbal response. So someone will hear me. I've gotten what I needed, but it's exhausting. Great question, Miriam. Again, it's a lot about the tones. Let's go through some of these in the few minutes we have left. I would say the best way to do this is also how we do it in English, right? You don't speak in uptalk. Uptalk is that stereotype of how Californians talk, where everything goes up at the end and it sounds like everything's a question or it's not quite serious. In Hebrew, usually the emphasis is on the last syllable. So the more that you can do that in what you're saying, the better. It sounds like you're landing things and it's more declarative, excuse me. So for example, listen, if I needed to speak to someone directly and have them understand what I'm saying and to pay attention to me exclusively, Miriam, I would say to a man, tishma, right? I would make sure it goes down at the end. I've had many female superiors in Israel in various jobs, and they definitely get your attention when they say it like that. Tishma, look at you in the eyes. Even if you're not looking at them in the eyes, they're certainly looking at you directly, and tishma. Okay, that's how you're going to say it. You can even do it with your hands. You can make it imply that you need them to look at you. Usually the way I would say it is tishma, right? This classic form, we can talk about nonverbal expressions in another lesson, but I would have it pointed at my eyes, so it's clear the other person needs to look at my eyes at the same time. Same with the other ones, by the way. Azov, azov, right? The emphasis on the last syllable. Or azovoti, like leave me alone, right? You're putting it on the last syllable, so it's clear to the other person, this is in play, I need you to back off. Great question, Miriam. Last question, Susan, rega achad. What about rega achad? No, Susan. Just like ein baya, that is too literal and too polite. Rega means a moment, and when you are speaking to someone, you say 1 moment, please. Let's say you're on the phone with someone on a, you're calling up for some service. They're going to usually say od rega vakasha. Just 1 more moment, please. Okay, you would not say rega achad. Don't translate it. This doesn't translate well enough from the English to the Hebrew of 1 moment. It's usually od rega vakasha. Just another moment, please. Okay, great question. Okay, with that, we are out of time. Anyone who wrote any questions in the chat, we will look over those in the next few days, especially if you wrote in requests there. Again, thank you all, toda rabba, for joining us. This lesson will be up on YouTube in the next few days. Again, you can click the subscribe button next to Nefesh B'Nefesh's account on YouTube to already get the update when this one comes up. You can also save the playlist of all of the Cafe Oleh lessons there as well. And we will see you all next week with another class. Until then, lihitraot. Take care.